Exposed. The heartwarming truth of a silent woman and her 9 daughters' incredible transformation. Clara Thompson stood in the kitchen, her hands dusted with flour, heart racing as she rolled out dough for the evening's dinner. The sun dipped behind the white picket fences of Maplewood, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. But in her home, chaos reigned. 9 daughters filled every corner, each with their own vibrant personality. Claire, the quiet one, lost in books. Emma, the determined eldest, dreaming of bigger days beyond the rusting factory town. And Lily, the resilient second youngest, who faced bullies at school with a tough exterior. This was love alive and loud, or, as the neighbors whispered, a miracle in the making. But hidden beneath the laughter, worries took root. The town had shifted. Economic hardships cast a long shadow, leaving families to struggle. Clara bore the weight of it all. She worked 2 jobs, scrimped and saved just to keep the lights on and food on the table. Each night she gathered her daughters, sharing stories of hope and resilience. "Hard work will lift us all," she often said, her voice gentle but firm. Yet now a letter disrupted their steady rhythm, a letter from someone Clara hadn't spoken to in years. An estranged relative reaching out, unraveling threads of a hidden past she'd fought to bury. The sisters gathered around the dim table, curiosity mixed with concern in their eyes. Clara's usually warm smile faded, replaced with the tight lines etched on her face. "Mom, who is this person?" Emma's voice trembled with both anxiety and anger. "What do they want?" "I'll handle it," Clara replied softly, but the knot in her stomach grew tighter. The weight of her old life crashed against her family's future. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The annual Maplewood Unity Festival approached, a night meant for celebrations, but for Clara it loomed like an impending storm. The community would gather, and whispers would flow as freely as the punch. Clara had always shied away from the spotlight, but this year something had to change. She saw her daughters, united in their resolve, and recognized that they, too, needed to confront the silent struggles of their upbringing. As they prepared for the festival, Clara felt the ground shifting beneath her. Would this be the night they finally found their voices? Or would it lead to heart-wrenching revelations too heavy to bear? In the middle of the crowd, a frail yet familiar voice cut through the noise, halting Clara in her tracks. The long-lost elder had come back. A wave of panic washed over her as memories flooded in. Clara's heart raced. Secrets long buried were poised to surface. Would her daughters stand beside her, unearthing not just her past, but their courage in the face of it? Under the twinkling lights, amid the bustling laughter and bright decorations, an extraordinary transformation was unfolding. The sisters inched closer, determined to be the strength their mother needed. The culmination of love, resilience, and the undeniable bond of family was at stake. But would the truth empower them or tear them apart? The festival lights sparkled like stars dropped from the sky, filling Maplewood with a shimmer of joy. Clara took a deep breath, heart pounding. She could almost taste the sweet punch and fried dough wafting through the air. Yet the festivities felt more like a gauntlet she had to run than a celebration. Cautiously, she approached the stage where the local band played upbeat tunes. Laughter echoed around her, but the sound added to her tension. Her sisters flanked her, Claire clutching tightly to her dress, Emma scanning the crowd, and Lily looking brave with a defiant smile that almost masked her worry. "Mom, for the dance, can we just stick to the plan?" Emma asked, her brow furrowed. They had discussed their performance in the days leading to the festival, a small number to show their unity and strength. But the whisper of Clara's past loomed heavily over them now. Clara steeled herself. "Yes, we'll stick to the plan, but remember, whatever happens tonight, we're together." Her voice was steady, even as her mind raced with worry. She could see the familiar silhouette of her estranged relative just beyond the crowd, a shadow that grew darker with every heartbeat. Throughout the evening, Clara felt the bubbling enthusiasm of her daughters. Claire danced with an abandon that illuminated every corner of her reserved soul, and Lily led the charge onto the stage with an infectious energy. They were thriving while Clara recoiled, holding on to a past that seemed to seep into the cracks of this beautiful night. The crowd cheered as they performed, and Clara couldn't help but beam with proud sorrow, watching her girls transform into the stars she so desperately wanted them to be. But just as their dance came to an end, a hush fell over the crowd. Her relative stepped forward, eyes locked onto Clara. "Clara," the voice cut through the cheers like a knife. "It's been too long." The weight of the world crashed upon her shoulders. She could see the familiarity in that face, the lines echoing generations of silence and shelter. Fear pulsed through her as she turned to her daughters. She was a different woman, a loving mother. But would they see the girl she once was? Would they understand her choices? Emma's jaw tightened. What does she want? Her protective instinct flared strong, just like Clara had taught her. She wants to talk. Clara's voice trembled, hoping perhaps for understanding, yet fearing rejection and anger. "Mama, you don't have to," Lily chimed in, defiance softening her tone. "We can leave." Clara shook her head. Fear and confusion danced in her chest. "No, if I run away now, I'll only be running from my past, and I can't let that shadow touch you." With her heart in her throat, Clara knew this was the moment of truth. She glanced at her daughters, each one a reflection of her strength and vulnerability. The gentle rustle of the evening painted a backdrop as Clara took a tentative step toward her past, toward the relatives she thought she could ignore forever. Sounds blurred, colors spun around, and she felt a shift. Perhaps this was the first step toward lifting the weight she had carried for so long. "Can we talk?" Clara compelled, her voice rising with newfound strength amid the whispers of the crowd. The faces around her held anticipation, a mix of hope and dread. As she reached her relative, a different kind of heartbeat echoed within her, one of possibility. What awaited them in the tentative conversation ahead? Would this reckoning bring her family closer, or deepen the divides she had fought so hard to protect? The answers lay just beyond the trembling threshold of her heart. Clara stood face to face with her past, the air thick with tension. She felt as though the festival had shifted, the cheerful sounds now muffled as the world around her faded into the background. The shadows cast by festival lights seemed to press in closer. Her relative's expression was unreadable, a mix of longing and apprehension. "Why now?" Clara managed to ask, her heart racing. "Why after all this time?" Her relative took a step closer, the crowd watching their interaction with bated breath. "I've changed, Clara. I want to make amends. Family matters, and I thought maybe it's time we talked." Clara hesitated, her breath faltering. She glanced back at her daughters. Their faces reflected a mixture of concern and curiosity. Claire still clasping her dress, Emma with a jaw set in determination, and Lily's defiant hope peeking through. Clara took a deep breath, feeling the supportive warmth of their presence. "Make amends? After all these years?" Clara questioned, disbelief lacing her voice. Memories flooded back, hurtful words, forced smiles, moments lost to misunderstandings. She felt tiny, like a girl again, overwhelmed by emotions she'd hidden away. I know you don't trust me, her relative admitted, pain evident in her voice. But I've spent years reflecting on my mistakes. I'm here to start fresh, for you and your daughters. Fresh? The word tasted foreign on Clara's tongue. It breathed hope, yet stunk of fear. This was the moment Clara had dreaded, yet almost anticipated. The crowd's energy seemed to shift. Instead of daggers, Clara felt inquiries, yearning to discover a resolution. "Mama, we should listen," Emma urged, stepping forward. "What if she's right? What if she can help us heal?" Lily nodded, squeezing her sister's hand. "We can hear her out. We're strong together." Clara fought back tears. A swell of pride filled her. They were fighting for her, always had been. It was a reminder that every decision she made, every burden she carried, was for them. They deserved the chance to understand, or to at least hear where this path led. "All right," Clara finally said, her voice firmer now. "But this is the only chance I'll give you. I won't let our family be shattered again." The relative nodded slowly. Her eyes shimmered with a mix of regret and relief. Clara felt the weight on her heart lighten just a bit. Perhaps hope was a fragile thing, but it existed, twinkling like the lights above. "We can talk under the stars," Clara suggested, gesturing toward the garden beyond the crowd. It felt more intimate, a space less crowded by memories and judgment. A shared breath came from her daughters, embracing this new beginning with cautious faith. As they stepped away from the bustling crowd, Clara glanced back. The laughter had returned, and the music surged, yet it felt distant. What awaited her in that quiet corner? Would the truth bring a healing balm, or crack open old wounds? With every step, the anticipation hung thick. This moment was uncharted territory, a precarious dance between fear and hope. And as she led her family deeper into the garden, Clara could feel the heartbeat of a painful history, ready to either resettle or explode. Would she discover the answers she sought, or would the shadows of yesterday rise up to reclaim her once more? A wave of uncertainty swept through her. She had taken the first step, but the hardest part was yet to come. The garden was alive with the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft glow of stars twinkling overhead. Clara felt the familiar weight of apprehension settle back in as they stepped away from the crowd. A hint of a breeze lifted her hair, bringing with it the faint scent of jasmine, but it barely touched the chill in her heart. Her relative led the way, glancing back as if to gauge Clara's response. The silence between them was charged, filled with years of unspoken words. Clara's daughters followed closely beside her, their expressions a mix of hope and defiance. They were brave, and Clara envied their innocence, something she had lost amidst the turmoil of her past. When they reached a secluded spot, illuminated by soft lanterns hung with care, Clara's relative finally turned to face her directly. "Thank you for trusting me, even just a little," she said, her voice trembling. "I know it's a lot to ask, but I want you to know I'm genuinely sorry." "Sorry doesn't erase what happened," Clara replied, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "All those years, the silence, the hurt, it's hard to believe you've changed. How can I trust you now?" The relative winced, but Clara sensed something deeper in her gaze. "You're right. It's not just about me. I owe you the truth, my truth. It won't make everything all right, but it's a start." She took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly. "When I walked away, I didn't realize how much I'd regret it. I thought distancing myself would spare you pain. Instead, it just created more distance." Clara felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. She had spent years burying the hurt, proud not to let it shape her, but now it bubbled upward, ready for assessment. "It wasn't just you. We were all affected," Clara said softly, her defenses beginning to crumble. "I know," the relative said, stepping closer. There were things I lacked, things I failed to see. But I've spent time understanding my mistakes, Clara. The last few years, I learned what family truly means, and I want to be part of yours, if you'll let me." Clara's heart raced. Could she really consider this? A path back to something that once caused her unbearable pain? She stole a glance at her daughters, who were watching attentively, their faces lit by the glow of the lanterns. Emma's eyes shimmered with unyielding faith. Lily squeezed Clara's hand, as if to remind her of their unshakable bond. "I don't know if it's that simple," Clara said finally, her voice trembling. "But," she paused, taking in the moment, "what do you think we could even talk about? Is there anything you can say that would ease this?" Her relative seemed momentarily taken aback, but quickly composed herself. "Perhaps I can share stories of why I left. I can explain my fears, my struggles, not to justify my actions, but to show you the person I've fought to become. Understanding everything might help." Clara nodded, contemplating how this conversation might evolve. It struck her then with a sense of urgency. Would understanding be enough to mend what was broken? Or would this only lead to more heartache? As her relative began to speak, Clara felt a surge of determination rising within her. This was the first time in years that she had taken a step into the unknown, seeking a possible resolution rather than allowing fear to control her. But deep down, Clara also feared what truths might be revealed. Would this questioning somehow point to a way forward for all of them? Or would it uncover an abyss too vast to cross? As she held her daughters close, a sense of resolve coursed through her. And with the next words to come, Clara knew it was time to confront the darkness, embracing whatever truth awaited them. Would it lead to healing, or would the shadows only deepen? Clara's heart beat loudly in her chest as the air around them crackled with tension. She watched her relative open her mouth, words fluttering like fragile moths into the night air. "I was scared, Clara," her relative began, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I left, it felt like the right choice. I thought I was protecting everyone from my darkness, when really I was just running away from myself." Clara felt a twinge of sympathy, but it was quickly followed by a cascade of resentment. "And that meant abandoning us? Leaving us in the dark?" Clara's voice rose slightly, filled with the pain of years. "Yes," her relative said, tears glistening in her eyes. "And I've regretted it every day since. I was so caught up in my fears, I failed to see the damage I was causing to those I loved the most." Emma looked up at her mother, her brow furrowed in confusion. In that instant, the little girl's innocence hung heavily in the air. Clara caught the look in her daughter's eyes, a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. She felt the weight of her daughter's hope resting on her shoulders. "Tell me everything," Clara said, her resolve hardening. "You say you've changed? Show me what that means. I need to understand why you thought leaving was the best choice." The relative took a shaky breath, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her sweater. "It started with my own childhood. I had parents who loved me, but there were expectations I could never meet. The pressure built up until I just exploded. Instead of asking for help, I withdrew, convinced that everyone around me would be better off without me." Clara felt a ripple of emotion as her relative's words washed over her. Could she really relate to such fear? The thought ignited a flicker of compassion in her heart. "But family doesn't work like that," Clara said, her voice softer now, almost contemplative. "We're supposed to lean on each other, not shut each other out. You may have thought you were protecting us, but your absence left a gaping hole that we've all felt. I've spent years trying to fill that space." "Believe me, I know," her relative replied, voice breaking. "I see that now. I never meant for it to hurt you. I just thought it would be easier. I thought by leaving I would prevent more pain in the long run." "Easier?" Clara repeated incredulously. "You left, and it became unbearable. What you meant to protect us from only created an even deeper wound." A pause hung between them, heavy with the weight of regret and understanding. Clara could feel the tide of resentment receding, just a little. Maybe this was the first step toward healing. "Talk to my daughters," Clara said, glancing down at Emma and Lily. "Help them understand. If we're going to rebuild anything, they deserve to know the whole truth." Her relative took another deep breath, visibly steeling herself. "You're absolutely right. I owe them and you everything. I want to start by talking to them, sharing stories about why I was so lost. Maybe if they understand, it'll help too." As her relative turned her focus to Emma and Lily, Clara stayed back, feeling torn between hope and fear. The night air buzzed with anticipation, like an electric current flowing through the garden. They were standing on the edge of something transformative, but with each step forward, Clara couldn't shake the haunting question, could the past really be reconciled? The shadows seemed to deepen around her as she waited, holding her breath for the next revelation. What new truths would unfold? Would they find a pathway to healing together, or were they only digging deeper into old wounds? Emma watched her mother's relative crouch down on her heels, the tension melting away to reveal a warmth and sincerity that filled the air. Clara's heart raced as she took a small step closer, wanting to be part of this connection, yet still feeling protective of her daughters. "Hi, sweet girl," her relative said gently, focusing on Emma. "I'm sorry I've missed so much of your life. I want to tell you why I left." Emma's eyes widened, innocence flickering through uncertainty. "Why did you leave?" She hesitated, then added, "Did you think we didn't need you?" The question hung heavily among them. Clara held her breath, her anxiety pinching her stomach. The relative sagged visibly, grappling with the weight of the inquiry. "I thought I was doing what was best for you," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I thought if I went away, you would be safer, happier." "Safer from what?" Emma pressed, her tiny brow wrinkling deeper. "From me," her relative confessed, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I thought I was too broken, too much of a burden. I didn't want to drag you all down with my problems." Lily took a step forward, her small hand tugging at Clara's skirt. "But you're here now. You can help us now. We can fix it together." Her bright eyes were filled with determination, as if she believed that love alone could bridge the chasm left behind. Clara felt a swell of pride mixed with sadness for her daughters. They had absorbed her pain, yet still saw hope in the dark corners. "Yes," her relative said, meeting Lily's gaze, "that's exactly how I feel. I want to help. I'm learning to face my shadows, and I want to teach you that you don't have to be afraid of your feelings. It's okay to ask for help." Emma blinked, processing the weight of the words. "Can you tell me more about your shadows?" she asked. "Like, what scared you?" "Of course," her relative replied softly. "I was afraid of letting people down, of being too much to handle. I spent so long convinced that if I showed my true self, I would just hurt everyone around me." Clara glanced at her daughters, watching their eyes flicker with understanding, a reflection of their own fears and doubts. She had fought hard to shield them from her struggles, thinking it was for the best. But here they were, bravely inching toward an emotional reckoning. "Sometimes being brave means admitting when you were scared," Clara finally added, surprising herself with the fierce conviction in her voice. "Being afraid isn't bad," Lily chimed in, "as long as you tell someone, like how I always tell Mommy when I don't want to sleep alone." Clara felt a rush of warmth at her daughter's innocence and wisdom. Exactly, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. We have to talk about these things. We shouldn't hide away. They formed a small circle, Clara, her daughters, and the relative. Fear and hope swirled together like blooms opening to spring light. Emma reached for her mother's hand, squeezing it tightly. I want to learn, she said brightly, as if she were already transforming the tension into a lesson. Tell us everything about your hopes and dreams. For the first time in a long while, Clara felt the knot in her chest loosening, a cautious sense of joy flickering under the surface. But just as she began to embrace the warmth blooming in her heart, the air shifted around them, a brisk chill cutting through the comfort they had just woven. Are you sure you want to know everything? Her relative asked, worry etching lines on her face. The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fears and revelations yet to come. Clara's pulse quickened. How deep did this rabbit hole go? Would they all be ready to confront the truth that lingered just out of sight? Clara felt a mix of trepidation and curiosity wash over her. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the vulnerability that had just taken shape. Emma and Lily looked up at their relative, wide-eyed and expectant. I want to be honest with you, her relative said, her voice barely more than a whisper. But sometimes the truth is messy. It can hurt. Messy is okay, Emma replied, her small frame filled with steely determination. Mommy says we can always handle the mess together. Clara's heart swelled at her daughter's words, but the weight of uncertainty pressed down on her chest. It's more complicated than that, sweetie, she intervened gently. Not all messes can be cleaned up easily. Even the hard ones? Lily asked, her brow furrowing. Yes, even the hard ones, Clara affirmed, her voice thick with emotion. The twist in her stomach reminded her of the deep wounds they all carried. Would this conversation only invite more pain, or would it provide the healing they desperately needed? I want you to know about my struggle with depression, her relative said, her eyes darkening with memory. There were days where I felt completely consumed. I thought if I left, it would be for the best. I thought, she paused, looking at each of them, her voice laced with regret. I thought I could protect you from my pain. Clara winced. Each revelation tugged at her heartstrings. You didn't have to do that alone, she said softly. But I thought, almost a plea, but I thought it was the right choice, that being distant would keep you safe, her relative replied, shaking her head. I didn't realize that it would only lead to more hurt. Could it have been different? Emma's voice, small and fragile, cut through the heavy air. If you hadn't gone away? Her relative's eyes glistened with tears. Maybe, but I was scared. I didn't believe you would love me for who I really was. Clara understood that pain. She had kept her own struggles hidden, believing they were burdens too heavy for her daughters. Yet standing here, in this moment, she felt the walls crumbling. Mommy, Lily said, breaking the silence, why didn't you ever tell us how you were feeling? Clara paused, grappling with the truth. I thought I was protecting you from the things that made me sad. But now I realize that sharing is how we grow stronger together. Yeah, like superheroes, Emma exclaimed, her excitement lighting up the somber mood. Everyone has weaknesses, but together we can be strong. The relative smiled through her tears, encouraged by the innocence and strength radiating from the girls. Exactly, she said. Sharing our fears and dreams is what connects us. It's the first step towards healing. An uneasy excitement bubbled up in Clara's chest. Would this be the turning point for them all? Could they build a pathway through their pain together? Let's take a moment, Clara suggested, wanting to let the warmth of vulnerability settle in the silence. They all held hands, forming a tight circle of connection. Each gentle squeeze reminded them that they were not alone in this. But as that moment unfolded, shadows loomed just behind them. The door creaked, and Clara turned to see the silhouette of a figure standing at the entrance, listening. Her heart raced. Who else was here? What other secrets lurked just outside their circle of light? "Mom," Emma's small voice shook her from her thoughts. "What do we do now?" Clara swallowed hard, knowing that even as they took steps forward, there were still truths waiting to be revealed. Clara's heart thundered in her chest as she turned toward the figure at the door. The shadows shifted and danced as if trying to hide the person standing there. She squinted, straining to make out a face. "Who's there?" Clara called, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. The figure stepped forward into the light, revealing a woman. Clara's breath caught in her throat. It was her sister, Sarah, someone she hadn't seen in years. Hair tied tightly in a bun, eyes filled with a mix of surprise and vulnerability. "Sarah," Clara whispered, disbelief flooding her voice. "What are you doing here?" "I heard. I didn't mean to interrupt," Sarah said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I was just passing by, and I felt drawn to come in. I overheard your conversation." There was an awkward silence where emotions tangled in the air. Clara felt a storm brewing inside her, a mixture of anger and relief. "You could have reached out," Clara said, tears stinging the corners of her eyes. "We needed you." "I know," Sarah breathed, stepping closer. "I've been struggling too. I thought distancing myself was the best way to protect you, but now I see how wrong I was." Emma and Lily exchanged glances, confusion clouding their innocent faces. The weight of adult decisions was suddenly too heavy for them to carry. "Mom," Lily whispered, concerned, "is she okay?" Clara knelt down, wrapping an arm around her daughters. "It's just a surprise, honey, a good surprise," she said, though her heart was still thudding with unexpounded feelings. She turned back to Sarah. "We can figure this out together. We can be honest. You don't have to hide anymore." A hint of hope sparked in Sarah's eyes. "I've carried so much guilt for leaving you all alone. I should have been there for you during your struggles. I was scared of being a burden." "You don't have to carry it alone," Clara replied, her voice softer now, filled with understanding. "Let's share our burdens. We've been doing that tonight. This is the start." "I want that," Sarah said, her voice trembling as she finally let the tears flow. "Everything just felt so hard. I didn't know how to be strong like you." "Strong doesn't mean hiding," Clara said gently, her heart softening at her sister's admission. "It means standing together, being honest, and allowing ourselves to lean on one another." The girls watched as their mothers embraced. It was a quiet moment of reconciliation. It felt like a breath of fresh air after a long storm. "I want to understand," Emma spoke up, her voice breaking the stillness. "Can we all be superheroes together?" They laughed together, the tension slowly dissipating, replaced by a glimmer of hope. Clara felt a weight lift, just a fraction of the burden she had carried for too long. But then, as they all stood together, embracing this new chapter, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that shadows still lurked beyond their comforting circle. Could they really move forward untouched by the past? "Can we talk more?" Sarah asked hesitantly. "I want to share everything, all the things I didn't say." Clara nodded slowly, her heart racing again. It was clear that tonight was far from over. The past might reveal itself in ways she never expected. As they huddled close, she realized none of them had truly faced their demons yet. And in this new journey of honesty and healing, could they handle what was still hidden in the depths of their hearts? The door creaked open again, the shadows creeping in as a familiar voice echoed from the hall. "And what if I told you there's more to the story?" Clara's breath hitched. The darkness was calling again. What awaited them in the shadows? Clara's heart raced. She turned slowly toward the open door. Dread creeping in alongside that familiar voice. How could there be more? Hadn't enough been revealed already? The figure stepped into the light. It was an older woman, her eyes sharp and penetrating. Clara recognized her immediately. It was Evelyn, their estranged aunt, the keeper of family secrets, the one who had always carried the weight of unspoken truths. "What do you mean?" Clara managed to ask, her voice steady despite the turmoil crashing around her. The girls clung to her leg, sensing the shift in the air. Evelyn drew in a deep breath, her eyes darting between Clara and Sarah. "There's a reason for everything, you know. The silence, the distance. It was easier for all of us to pretend everything was fine." She looked more vulnerable than Clara remembered, as if her years of isolation had stripped away any posturing. "Why now?" Clara questioned, her hurt boiling just beneath the surface. "Why now?" Evelyn drew in a deep breath, her eyes darting between Clara and Sarah. "There's a reason for everything, you know. The silence, the distance. It was easier for all of us to pretend everything was fine." She looked more vulnerable than Clara remembered, as if her years of isolation had stripped away any posturing. "Why now?" Clara questioned, her hurt boiling just beneath the surface. "Why come back when everything's already a mess?" Evelyn's shoulders slumped. "Because the past is haunting all of us, Clara. I've been following your journey from afar, and I finally realized that we can't keep running from our history. It's time to confront it." "Confront what, exactly?" Sarah interjected, her voice quivering. "All I did was make things worse by leaving." "No," Evelyn countered, "you were protecting yourself. But there are pieces of our family that need to be put back together. Pieces that you're unaware of, truths that could change everything." Clara braced herself, glancing at her sister and then back at her aunt. "What do you know?" "Everything," Evelyn stated, her voice low and steady. "About Mom, your father, and the choices they made." Lily tugged at Clara's sleeve. "Mom, what's she talking about?" "Just some old stories," Clara replied, forcing a smile for her daughters. But inside, confusion and fear collided. She wanted to shield them from whatever dark figure loomed behind their family history. Evelyn stepped closer, not backing down. "It's more than stories, Clara. It's about why Sarah left, why your mother chose silence, and how all this has affected your daughters, too. This isn't just history, it's a pattern repeating itself. You have to choose, face it, or let it smother you." Clara's mind reeled. She felt dizzy with the weight of Evelyn's words, the weight of the past, the fear of dragging her daughters into something so deep and dark. "Mom," Emma's voice broke through her thoughts, "are we superheroes or not? Can't we fight this together?" Tears stung Clara's eyes. Her little girl's bravery tore at her heart. "We've faced enough tonight, Emma. We need time." But Sarah's hand rested on Clara's shoulder. "No more time wasted, Clara. We need to understand. It might hurt, but knowledge is light. We owe it to ourselves to know." Evelyn nodded, her expression softening. "We can do this together. Secrets only grow more dangerous in the dark. Together, we've got a chance." Clara's breath hitched as they faced one another, a mixture of hope and panic. Swirling among them, could they truly unearth the buried truths? As the weight of the decision hung in the air, Evelyn added, "There's something to tell you about your mom's past that you've never heard, Clara, and it might change how you see your family forever." The shadows flickered around them, carrying with them a sense of urgency. Clara felt something shift inside her. What lies had they all lived with? What kinship had been fractured by those very secrets? And just as dread and anticipation swirled together, making Clara's heart pound with fear and hope, she knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about her. This was about understanding, healing, and perhaps even hope for her daughters. But at what cost? "Can we really face this together?" Clara whispered, looking into Sarah and Emma's eyes. Evelyn took a deep breath, the answer locked in her gaze. As darkness hovered at the edge of all their uncertainties, delicate threads of connection began to weave between them. How would they pull together? And would they survive the truths that waited to come to light? The atmosphere hung thick with anticipation as Clara, surrounded by her daughters, felt the weight of her past pressing in. Each heartbeat resonated with the shared breaths of the women who stood beside her. "We can do this. We have to," Clara said, her voice firm yet gentle as she turned to face Evelyn. "Every family has its scars," Evelyn began, her tone softening as she regarded the sisters. "And scars tell stories. Some are painful, but they also bind us together. Your mother's choices, Clara, what I have to share, needs to be heard. It might rewrite your understanding of everything." Heavy silence enveloped them, broken only by the distant sounds of laughter and music from the festival. Clara's hands trembled as she held her daughters closer. The light from the lanterns flickered, their soft glow illuminating the shared vulnerability in their eyes. "Please, just tell us," Emma urged, her innocence shining through a veil of confusion. "We want to understand." With a deep breath, Evelyn began. "Your mother had a life full of challenges before the silence. There were secrets that strained our family, burdens she waded through alone. But she chose love when faced with pain, to protect her girls from the shadows of our past." "Mom," Lily's small voice chimed in, "you said we shouldn't be afraid of the dark." Clara smiled, her heart swelling with pride at her daughter's fierce spirit. "Yes, my love. Understanding isn't easy, but it's important. Let's hear what Aunt Evelyn says." Fixing her gaze on Clara, Evelyn continued. "Years ago, your mother and I lost someone dear. It fractured our bond. Our parents had all this unspoken fear masked in secrecy. I watched Clara shoulder the unbearable alone. She thought leaving behind family drama would shield you all, but that's not how love works. Hiding doesn't protect anyone." Every word Evelyn spoke was unraveling layers of hurt that Clara had tightly wound around her heart. She felt raw, exposed, yet the realization was liberating. As Evelyn recounted memories, both filled with love and marred by pain, Clara watched Emma and Lily's faces shift from confusion to understanding. The revelation of old wounds opened a window for healing, an opportunity for the future they all desperately needed. "If we want to move forward, we have to forgive," Evelyn said, her eyes shimmering. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's recognizing the journey. Clara, your story continues here, tonight, carried forward by your daughters." Clara inhaled deeply, an overwhelming surge of emotions crashing over her. "I spent years buried in guilt, thinking I was protecting you all, but maybe I lost sight of what true love feels like." A silence lingered before she turned to her daughters. "I want to change this dynamic. I want you to know me, all of me, flaws and all. I don't want to carry this darkness alone anymore." The air shimmered with newfound connection, and Clara noticed Lily beaming brightly. "It's okay to feel scared and sad too, Mom. We're still a family." "Exactly," Emma exclaimed. "We're in this together. Superheroes never hide their feelings. They talk about them." Droplets of tears fell down Clara's cheeks as she looked at her girls. "Together we can face anything," she affirmed, heart bursting with love and transformation. So how about we promise not to let secrets seep into our lives anymore? We save that for other families." Evelyn smiled, feeling the warmth radiate from the sisters. "That's a remarkable promise, Clara. Support each other through tough days because you can overcome together." Clara felt light as burdens lifted. Here was possibility, a blend of hope, family, and love unbound by fears of the past. As they embraced once more, something beautiful settled in the air, a shared resilience, a desire to understand, and an undeniable bond. With the festival continuing around them, Clara took a bold step forward. "Let's make more happy memories, sunny days ahead, right here, surrounded by love and not shadows." As laughter and music swirled around, a chorus of agreement filled the small garden. "Yes," Emma and Lily cheered, their voices ringing bright against the backdrop of the night sky. As they stepped back into the warm embrace of the festival, Clara felt the sun rise in her heart. This was their moment, their time to shine together, free from the past's heavy grip. They had all started on a journey, not just of truth, but of healing and possibility. From this moment on, the Thompsons were no longer defined by silence or scars. Together they would transform and flourish, bound by love and chained, not bound, by the shadows of their history. And as the last notes of the festival echoed into the night, Clara knew they had all faced the darkness and emerged more radiant, together, a family renewed. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you even more. Leave a like. Now to feed the algorithm. Every bit helps us reach more hearts like yours. Comment your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. What did it mean for you? And don't wait, not even one more second, to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let's keep the love spreading.